right, we'll be back from that commercial. Let's continue driving business. And Rita, let's first have a look at some of the stories that made headlines across the weekend. What caught your attention across the business world?
Across the business world, let me see, first of all, around the country here. It's a religious one, but I want to see how the country would reap greatly, especially for the religions where there was installing the eminence for the Orthodox community. So I want to, relay an information here that whenever installations are ongoing for the religions, especially around the country, there is a lot of government support that comes along the track, and that has not. I don't want to say that has nothing to do with maybe citizens' taxation or what, because as a president, at some point when you're called for attending a function, there is a vacancy that you put there. But not only president, a lot of politicians, leaders, associations, a lot of kingdoms, rely on to give a hand to these people coming into governance for the religions. I'm not talking only the eminence, we have got archbishops, we have got a lot of people. But when it comes to that, my concern here is, do you think that money goes to the church or should go to the church building, church development, or that particular one is for that person who is coming into, who is being installed at some point? What do you think should always be, what should always be the point?
Well, I think sometimes the money goes to the church, because I also remember a few weeks back the Catholic Church also got their new bishop of the Kampala Archdiocese ordained into the Archbishop, and President Museveni happened to have sent him a V8. So I think that V8 was mainly for the bishop.
For the church.
It's for the bishop. But I think for the money, I wouldn't want to go into where that money goes.
No,
but I believe it should be for the church.
I'm saying, what do you think? For you, what is you're a believer, right? Are you Catholic, musician, Orthodox? Artist?
You mean musicians are not religious at all?
No, that was a better. What are you, Sonko?
No, I was born from a Catholic family, though in the long run became a Pentecostal.
Okay, so let us take Pentecostal.
When you look at that, mainly, I believe that money is supposed to be going to the church. Because if it goes to the church, it shows that it's going to develop rather than going to an individual. Because if it goes to an individual, then that means it is like you're trying to involve the rest of the people to go into this and think that is a more paying job.
Okay, and then there is something funny related, just onto the same point. During death and funerals, when someone has passed on, and there happen to be a condolence money that funds we receive. Of course, for example, Rita, I happen to lose maybe my dad, my father, rest in peace. So, for example, Smart 24 here, the money that you're going to condole with me or to give us a condolence package, are you giving it to me or you're giving it to the family? How should it always be? Because these issues are arising from the public. Like someone, they read the message that a certain organization has sent this money, and someone bees on tension, attaching it to himself or themselves. How should it always be?
Well,
what is your
when you talk about the condolences, I believe the condolences is supposed to go to that same person. Like if we are to send it to you, it has to be yours because it is you who we know.
Okay.
And you've actually taken me back to days in primary. God forbid, there are things I was actually seeking. I was praying to God. There were times when I could see my friends getting condolences, and I'm like, oh, I also lose someone. Illusions that you're like, I wish I could lose someone. Nange bampe kasente ako. Mungena mwana bamade mitwalo kumi condolence nagamba. But then in the long run, I realize it's not even good for you to lose someone. For you, will be excited because you're going to get money through condolences for the condolences fee. Well, I guess it is good to actually go to
that particular individual that you know.
But when you look at the issue of the churches, I think mostly even the members of the congregation of the church bring these products and bring all these gifts to the new bishop, or should I say the new reverend who is attached to their parish. And in most cases, it is supposed to be going to the bishop. But because he's a man of God and he wants to be exemplary, I see them actually putting it back into the community.
That is a good, that one is a good one. It reveals humanitarian responsibility around them. I think every, spiritual advisor could do that. You know why we try to bring this? It being a day like this, we gather public concerns and we follow our theme of, our business desk, what you are concerned with from public, especially it could be social, economical, social, political. We relay them here. So on conclusion on that particular one, so me, I think my opinion in regards to, these things, these gifts or funding that come from different individuals towards any installation, any fundraising at some point, it should always be clear. Why? Because someone will relay a message, will read a message. Honorable Nabanja, Honorable Minister, has sent, for example, 100 million
to the new archbishop or to the parish.
Okay, yes, they should always say to the new archbishop or to the parish. It should always be clear, or to contribute to the building. Now, if you leave it hanging that it has contributed 100, because you have seen them reading messages like that. Honorable Minister Nabanja has contributed 10 million.
Just about tisa.
At the house, when that money is there.
In most cases.
Number one, as a person being installed at that point, I'm going to be on tension. Katezo zigendawa, aniazi quarter. You get aniazi quarter. So that if it is always clear, it is always going to be a grading that will help us, will help people understand, and will help everything go on or move on very well, and say, hey, everything is clear, no pressure.
You see, sometimes I feel
if something
it also
is going to happen and you just come, Sonko, to tell me, I have this money, I want it to be mine or defined where it's
Sometimes I also feel it goes back to the amount of money that is being put at stake. You see, imagine 100 million. Now, even the people in the congregation will hear 100 million.
100 million can be attached to an individual.
In scenarios whereby you're giving it to an archbishop whom they know, let's say in the Catholic fraternity, like for instance, if he had, remember for the Catholics, you're not, it is not.
Yeah, you're not supposed
for you to be
marry.
married. So you have no child there. The only people you have are maybe relatives. So imagine the 100 million. These are cases where you hear the church is divided. There are very few things that divide the church in most cases. If it's not sin, it has to be money. And in most cases, it's money. Because sin rarely happens in church. Once there is some sin in church, the whole country will know. And if you could actually throw back a little bit to what happened to the former Archbishop of the Church of Uganda, that can clearly show you that.
Stanley Tagari,
yes,
right.
so it can show you, the name is quite ironical with that though, but let's put that aside.
But away from that, church contributions are again helping business community thrive and grow. Because if, for example, 100 billion is being attributed to a church, church are taking care of a lot of charitable groups. Church, we have seen church also reaching out to very many people, reaching out to business community, because I tend to believe that among the business community, when they're going to church, they have got circles actually around church. So when they're at church, they discuss business and spiritual movement. So after that, there is money actually, in case you didn't know, Sonko, that at church, members of certain communities do save. They have saving groups. That is one thing that I appreciate the church community in this case. So they are developing a saving culture even while at church. So for me, it's a very contributor to the business community around the country.
And furthermore, if you to look at the other story, Parliament passed the Mining and Minerals Bill 2021 that will lead to the establishment of the Uganda National Mining Company, which will manage the government's commercial holding and participating interests in mineral agreements. And the bill was passed on mandates that the National Mining Company holds 15% free equity in all large and medium mining ventures, as well as have the right to pay up to 20% extra shares in the mining ventures at the commercial rate. And presenting the report on the bill, the chairperson of the Committee on Environment and Natural Resources, Honorable Emmanuel Otala, said that the mineral agreements and production sharing agreements will apply to highly capitalized investment and complex mining. The new law also provides for participation of host communities in the entire decision-making chain of mining. So I think this is the key highlight here, with the fact that communities will have an entire decision-making in the chain of mining. So is the government going back to the individuals, or rather to the people, and looking at the fact that we have some communities, let's say in Karamoja, even southwestern Uganda, that are rich in minerals, various minerals. And I think if you can look at it in this way, I think this kind of build-up helps the people get involved in the process of mining and also understand that the government is willing to support them.
I agree, and there is also what they've been advocating for, especially with the oil project that has come up around the country, the SOP, that is the social operation provision. Yes, that is allowing people, or especially government, to seek consent on everything they are going to do. Let the public come first. Let the people or the occupants around that area come first. That is why even before people were displaced, but with compensatement onto them, government had to come out first, and they had to make sure they have a decision, say, around maybe the money they would want. But I don't know, because there were even concerns raising that the money was less to what they expected. That is bound to happen in any, I can say, any community, if it's not very organized from the top. So what I am saying is that when decision making is involving people, when it is involving local communities, it helps people to actually also decide better or plan better with the local authorities for, sustainable living. For example, if Sonko, you're going to engage maybe a borehole construction or a borehole digging or setup around a certain community, and you're from the district, you have been assigned that, you know what, in Nyamango area, we're going to have a borehole. And what is going to happen is you come dressed with your overalls, because that's what they mostly dress up. And from all you know it, people are just seeing a caterpillar vehicle, the grading vehicle moving on, sloping somewhere, maybe in a swampy area. They really don't know what is going on. Even though maybe the engineer had surveyed earlier, something could happen. I mean, no one knows actually what is happening around that particular place, if it's not the person living there. They say, awakula we wakolati omukulu wako
erisere mukulu wadugala we walaba.
Okay, then I don't know if it's going to work from what I'm saying, but I want to put it that people know better what they want. People know programs that are going to do better for themselves. For example, farmers in different villages around this country know that, you know what, we want this. If this would happen, we would feel good and help us grow. But what they want from you as an implementer, or the person going to pass on whatever they want, is you talking to them, developing and polishing that idea better, so that they get to know what is supposed to be done. That when we always disinvolve them or put them aside in decision making, there is always going to be a problem.
And if you're to look at how we can help this economy, or pretty much see the economy recovering, it is to take the inclusive growth. And inclusive growth means we should have to involve everyone in making sure that every decision that is being made by government is actually also undertaken through various means of interactions with people. They need to actually go to the grassroots. They need to go to the individuals. They need to go down to the people to actually see how people are going to benefit out of any policy out there. They need to go to the people to see how the individuals are going to actually earn from it. Because at the end of the day, when government sets up these policies, sometimes it affects the people. And government is only going to benefit through the taxation and all that. So, but with this, you can see that means individuals, and that means the public is going to take a very serious note or a very serious say when it comes to issues regarding the mining. Part
and
of
you
it.
also mentioned about how government is only considering established companies.
Yes.
Because I mean, it is clear. We don't want scenarios to happen again. For example, if I'm to relate it from the Ministry of Investment, whereby an investor was withdrawn land because he couldn't use it, maybe the funding was not there. So if that government move is, I can buy it for me. Why? Because these people are going to be serious now. I mean, the investment that is going to come along with the mining areas, people are going to say, okay, if, for example, they have established or put a certain investor on, and this is a well-established company, we know the whereabouts, it's been in business for quite long, 30 years and above, we have not had any problem with it, why not? That one gives security among individuals and also other investors to inject in income for better mining activities. And also, security among employment is also key. When you look at how I'm going to be employed working for an organization that is going to just vanish within a short period of time, that is not going to do me well. And I appreciate the government if it's going to clear it out, like it is saying that only, established companies are going to be, well-established companies are going to be contracting the mining activities. That one will give grading and also security tenders to people who are intending to work there.
Well, when you talk about actually giving security, very good issue there. So which means that not only even we also need to also look at the financial security part of it. I believe everyone gets involved in these economic activities to at least, some of them are breadwinners at home. And so when the government is making sure that they have a say, I do believe they should as well have a say when it comes to the financial matters. Because sometimes I believe...
So you want government to put grading?
Maybe. At least to say that for the miners, there should be this particular amount. Sometimes rather than the government taking the finished product and exporting it out, and after exporting it out, those who are dealing in the mining have not benefited. When the people who are actually dealing in the mining have not benefited at all from that.
And you're right. I buy the idea too. If government, comes out to say and put a minimum gauge around the mining activities and say, for example, porters who will be working around the cave, because they are mining caves, according to the reports, even the Ministry of Minerals or Ministry of Energy.
They dig very deep.
So they say porter grade 1, they could even grade them, will be receiving this amount of money.
Per day maybe?
Per day, per hour, per week. At least those details. Everything is possible. I mean, we should change that narrative that something is not going to be possible around this
the only challenge when someone mentions per hour here, I believe we are all charged per hour.
It can happen.
But if you're to put the numbers in per hour, you will say you're receiving very little pay. So I think that is why in most cases, the employers choose to just hide the whole thing into a monthly pay, so that at least you're not going to be defiant whatsoever. Okay. You're not going to be a loudspeaker and you start saying, nah, hey, Rachi, you're paying me only 50 shillings per hour. So I believe they have to give you a very huge number or a very huge sum at the end of the month, and then you look at it and you're like, hey, nah, hey, I'm receiving some huge amount.
Sometimes we have to do self-evaluation. Even within an hour, you can evaluate yourself and say, okay, I think I have overworked here, or I have done less, or I've done a lot for this particular company or for this activity. You go to your boss and nemutesa. But the issue of saying...
sometimes if there is a Ugandan who can come out boldly,
and say,
and you go to your boss and you're like, I feel like this month I was not effective. Please reduce
I can do that.
Reduce my
I
pay.
can do that.
That's good.
I've done it before.
Oh, that's very good. Me, I would think of, I'll just go and say, you know what, boss, I believe next month I will be better. So you know what you're going to do?
No, I've done that before actually. I've gone to my boss and I've said, you know what, I feel like I am not putting a lot. I feel like I am not learning even. I feel like I'm deteriorating. Please help me do better. And I think we should
help me reduce my salary.
Sonko, what is next?
you don't know. Besides that, I was scrolling.
I did say reduce my salary.
I was scrolling the timeline over the weekend, and I happened to see a trending picture where the Prime Minister happened to attend a Zoom conference meeting. I think she was on her way along the road. I think she was on her way, and people were saying, appreciate the gentleman who was holding the two flags behind her. Others were saying, appreciate.
There was no gentleman.
There was a gentleman who was holding the two flags behind her. And then there are some people actually saying now what the Prime Minister has done clearly shows some individuals that you should not say you missed a meeting because Manya, you were traveling. So the Prime Minister has showed you can still maybe have a break somewhere.
To some people. That can apply to the minister there and some individuals. To some individuals it can't. I mean, you get caught up in the rain. You have a meeting. Like on a day like this, it rained. There was a heavy downpour in the morning.
Very early.
And in the wee hours. So, I mean, if you had to happen to have a meeting very early at 7, that means you're going to miss it unless you have equipment or tools like a vehicle. You're driving yourself. You can park and have your computer connected. But you're rushing on a border to beat up the jam and you have a meeting, you're still going to miss it out. So to me, it is always an evaluation emphasis.
All right. And with that, let's try to look at this particular report before we go into the break. And this one is taking us to domestic tourism in the country. I believe this is one of the key sectors that have grown greatly. Amidst the pandemic, there has been a very huge rise in domestic tourism. So when you look at that, of recent, Uganda has been extremely successful in fostering domestic tourism, especially during the pandemic, and is now one of the leading domestic tourism markets in East Africa. And when you look at that, though when it comes to the tourism sector, most tourists know Uganda for its remarkable national game parks and reserves that inhabit several wildlife species. And during the pandemic, the numbers of domestic tourism grew higher as most people used it as an escape plan to find leisure during the weekend, since entertainment places had been shut down or had been closed down. With this particular report, we look at the domestic tourism sector and will it survive or will it maintain these numbers with the fact that the entertainment sector has been reopened. Tourist expenditure in Uganda dropped threefold in the year 2020. Total of $1.6 billion was spent by tourists in Uganda in 2019 compared to $0.44 billion spent in the year ending December. During the pandemic, a number of local tourism companies grew and have pushed the idea of domestic tourism among the youth. We caught up with the CEO of Tripadix, Ibrahim Kayondo, who were awarded the Best Domestic Tourism Company award at the New Grow Janzi Awards 2021, who revealed that there is a slight change in domestic tourism, which has forced the youth to yearn for different destinations across Uganda.
Tourism, of which I again subdivide it in two categories. I look at youth-oriented domestic tourism. Now, with youth, of course, you just don't make them, there's what entices them to love something. And these are the vibes, like one asked me here. So, of course, ours is the vibes-oriented youth domestic tourism. Yeah, I would like to say there's a little bit of entertainment in there.
Previously, at a presser held at the Uganda Media Center, an initiative was launched to promote domestic tourism. The State Minister for Tourism, Martin Mugara, said this is an initiative that will create inclusive growth for everyone to help Uganda's tourism sector grow bigger.
This is a very important campaign that is to do with making travel tourism for the Africans easier amongst themselves. Like Barbara said, it's still a challenge. If you look at the price of an air ticket within the African countries, if you're moving amongst them, it's more expensive than actually going to Europe and back. So I think it's important that these things are addressed, and I want to thank the organizers, because the importance of this campaign is to create awareness for the policymakers, for everyone that matters.
Martin Mugara also thanked and implored the Ugandans to continue their support for domestic tourism.
I didn't leave this podium without thanking the Ugandans. I still want to encourage you. She was giving you figures that October, November, December, almost, we can round it off to 80,000 people went to the protected areas. Now, I'm not talking about those that went to Kalangala. I'm not talking about the ones that went to Bunyonyi. I'm not talking about the ones that went to the Uganda Wildlife Education Center. I'm only saying those that recorded that entered our parks. And we know so many Ugandans travel for different reasons, not only the parks. But you can imagine in those 3 months, we had almost 80,000. In the month of December alone, we had around almost 41,000 people that traveled to the parks. And like she said, of course, we classify them as East Africans, but Ugandans make up the big number. So we still had almost over 50% of people that went to the parks being Ugandans. And we made a lot of money. Hotel owners made a lot of money. Our young people had business. The locals sold food. Because this is, travel is something that impacts everyone, from the hotel owner to the lowest common man down there.
But according to Kayondo, the rise of domestic tourism came in as a blessing in disguise, since most Ugandans were looking for leisure places. The bars and the entertainment sector in general were closed, but now it may be challenging as the entertainment places are open and Ugandans were eager to get back to the partying.
We are lucky enough that it was a blessing in disguise during the COVID that people embraced domestic tourism, but we are going to find a challenging task because now bars are open. Ugandans, of course, are not people who love domestic tourism or touring. That I'll be frank, I'll be honest. They don't. It was a blessing in disguise, and of course, what we brought on board, the silent disco on bars, the games we bring on board, the activities, those entice people to come on board. But this time around, we have challenges. We are facing competition not within ourselves alone. We are facing competition from bars, from events. Every weekend, of course, there are carnivals, there are festivals, there are events, very many of them. So,
according to figures from the World Travel and Tourism Council, the direct impact of tourism expenditures in Uganda amounted to 3.1% of gross domestic product in 2019, before the pandemic, compared to Tanzania's 4.8%, Kenya's 5%, and Madagascar's 5.7%. Nonetheless, tourism in Uganda is showing great promise for the future. Tourism in the country, and with that you can easily tell that the domestic tourists here had picked up, but their numbers are slightly decreasing with the fact that the entertainment sectors are open. Most of them thought they would only use the domestic tourism as a gateway for entertainment, reason being there was no other sector that was open for them to actually have some leisure activities. We do hope that the Ugandans can continue supporting domestic tourism, but after the break, we're going to return with an expert insight interview talking about Uganda's withdrawal from the international coffee community.
Yes, please, and the agreement. We take a break, we do return.